Hi, Garden Rebels. Hey, I know this is going to be old news by the time you get it, but it's the first day of spring. And for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, that's a good time. But you know, it got me thinking. My geeky side of me got me thinking, how in the world does spring happen? Why do they call it the vernal equinox? And what's the big deal about it? I wanted to show you how I learned about the seasons. Now, I took this grapefruit and this is representing the sun. And this tomato, it's a tad bit overripe, is the earth. Now, there is no way that this is to scale, nor is the distance. Actually, let me show you. Forget the grapefruit, forget the tomato. Imagine the sun the size roughly of this basketball. Let's set it right here. That's the sun. Now, since we're gardeners, right? That's roughly also the size of a 2-gallon boxwood. This is Buxus sufruticosa, by the way. It's a true dwarf boxwood, so roughly that same size. Or it's really a very small Abelia kaleidoscope. Is Chamaecyparis obtusa thalloii, is that stretching it? Though it is roughly the size of a small hanging basket. So let's change that. The sun is a really small hanging basket. What's the earth? The earth is the size, less than the size of a pea. So if this was the sun and this is the earth, and we wanted to build this a scale model, the earth would be not here, not here either. It's just so amazing to me on a cosmological scale how small we are to the vastness of the universe, just even in our own solar system. But going back to the season, spring season, why does that happen? Now, the earth, of course, rotates around the sun, right? And by the way, this little tomato, you can see right on there, I wrote Tualatin. Now, it probably would have been easier for you to envision if this was actually a small globe or something, but it's right around second breakfast time. This is all that I had, and I'm gonna eat this after we're done. So, you know, in a day that we rotate around in 24 hours. It's actually a little bit less than 24 hours, but because we've moved a little bit of distance this way, we've got that extra turn, so it takes us roughly 24 hours. Roughly, it's not exact. So anyways, we go around, the earth rotates around the sun, of course, right? And it's not in a perfectly sphere, it's kind of an elliptical orbit around it. But what really makes the season, what makes this so cool and unusual, is that we've got the tilt of the earth. So if this is the North Pole and the South Pole, we get this little bit of a tilt in our orbit so that we get the seasons. It's really a slight tilt, 23 1.5 degrees. So if you think of 90, you think of 45, roughly half of 45. It's that little slight tilt that gives the northern hemisphere the springtime, and then the fall hemisphere would be the winter right now. And then as it goes around and changes, because it takes 365 days to go around, we will slowly change that tilt to we're far away from the sun. So now, small little tiny detail here is I never understood vernal equinox or spring equinox or the September equinox. So we get the fall and the spring equinox, and then we've got this term called the solstice, and I get those mixed up. And this is how I remember, by the way. So solstice means a sol as in sun, and stis means stop. So it's that degree of change, that degree of rotation that is solstice. So when we're closest, when that tilt is at its maximum, say in the summertime, that's the summer solstice, we're at the closest maximum angle that the Earth gets. And so we will start on the first day of summer, start to tilt away from the sun, so that in the fall, we're literally equal distance between the two extremes of tilting. So vernal equinox, our spring equinox, we're literally halfway between the two stops. So as we round the bend and get our tilt even closer to the sun, or toward the sun. Oh, by the way, it's this day, first day of a spring and the first day of fall in the equinoxes for our northern hemisphere. I think it might be it's definitely for the northern hemisphere, is that the sun truly rises due east and sets due west. So just a little bit of a tidbit for you, a garden cocktail party discussion. So when we begin to have cocktail parties again, unless we do it over Zoom, what does that mean for us, like here on the ground, in the garden? It's just little amazing, strange, weird phenomena that I just find terribly interesting. It's how a tree knows to leaf out, to bud and push out new leaves. This is Acer palmatum Rhode Island red, by the way. Just a really cool tree, very red, upright, small. After handling all of the winter weather, begin to lose their winter look and start growing this new fresh spring. How does a plant know that? And perennials and bulbs, without any help from us, start to bloom and bloom and wake up and bloom and produce an amazing fragrance. Oh, and sometimes just a completely intoxicating fragrance. Oh. Yep, and all of that just to wish you a happy spring. Guys, that's the show for the day. Always live your passion.